All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive today. We're tackling something pretty big, language models. Specifically, we're going to see how to make them, well, kind of smaller, faster.
More efficient.
Yeah, exactly, more efficient. But the real trick is doing all that without losing any of their smarts, any of that power.
That's the challenge, right? It's like we've got this amazing tech, these powerful language models, but they can be a real resource hog.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking not just the training costs, but also just running the darn things. That inference cost can be a real pain.
Oh, tell me about it. And it's only getting more intense as we use these models more and more. It's not just about building them anymore. It's about using them every day.
That's what makes this whole topic so fascinating, I think. The more we use these models, the more those costs just keep stacking up. And honestly, that kind of scares me a bit. It feels like it could be a roadblock to making AI accessible to everyone.
Oh, for sure. And sustainable too, right?
Exactly. Sustainable. We can't just keep throwing more and more computing power at every problem. So, like, what do? Do we just start with smaller models right off the bat? But then wouldn't we be sacrificing performance? What's the trade-off there?
Well, there's this idea called overtraining, where you essentially take a smaller model and then just, well, train it like crazy.
Like an AI boot camp.
Haha, yeah, kind of. You feed it a ridiculous amount of data, trillions of those tokens, to help it punch above its weight class.
So we're pushing the smaller model to learn everything it possibly can from all that data to make up for its size. Okay, that's a really cool idea. But then wouldn't training on that much data be crazy expensive and time-consuming in itself?
Yeah, it's definitely a trade-off. You can get those inference costs down, but then the initial training process, man, that's a beast in itself. And, well, that's where distillation comes in, kind of like the hero of our story.
Ah, yes. Distillation. Everyone's talking about it these days. Okay, break it down for us. What exactly is it?
Think of it this way. You've got a total genius professor, right? That's your big, powerful language model. And then you've got this eager student who wants to soak up all that knowledge.
Okay, I like the analogy. I'm following.
So distillation is kind of like that professor sharing their wisdom with the student. It's about teaching that smaller model all the tricks of the trade from the big one.
All right, I'm getting it. But then why bother? If we've already got that brilliant professor, the big model, why not just stick with that? Why go through this whole distillation process?
Well, remember those pesky inference costs we talked about? With distillation, you're aiming for smaller, leaner models. Think lightweight, but still packing a punch. You want the smarts of the big model, but without that massive computational overhead. Efficiency is the name of the game.
It sounds like we're trying to get the best of both worlds.
Precisely. And honestly, it's not always easy. The research on distillation, it's like a mixed bag. Some results are just phenomenal, mind-blowing. But then there are others where, it's not so clear-cut.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? There's still so much we're figuring out about distillation. Like, when does it work? When doesn't it? Why?
Lots of open questions, for sure. But that's where the scaling law for distillation comes in. These researchers, they came up with a way to kind of predict how well this whole student-teacher thing will actually work.
A formula. I love formulas. So what goes into it?
Well, you've got your teacher model, obviously, and how well it actually performs. That's a big factor. And then the size of your student model matters, too. Oh, and of course, there's how much data you throw at it during training.
Okay, so it's about balancing those three things. Did they go all out when they were testing this scaling law? I'm kind of hoping they did.
They totally did. I mean, we're talking models ranging from 143 million parameters, pretty small, all the way to 12.6 billion parameters.
Wow. Okay, so we're not messing around here.
Not at all. And then on top of that, they use datasets going from a few billion tokens to, wait for it, 512 billion tokens. This was a seriously comprehensive study.
Okay, you've got my attention. Lay it on me. What do they find out? Does distillation actually live up to the hype?
Well, here's the thing. It's not a simple yes or no. It's more nuanced than that. They found that sometimes, distillation just crushes traditional training methods. It's like unlocking this hidden potential in the smaller models.
Okay, that's promising. But you said sometimes. What about those other times? When does it fall flat? That's what I really want to know.
One of the biggest takeaways was this. The teacher's performance, it's critical. You can't expect to get a star student with a mediocre teacher, right?
Makes total sense. So how do they measure how good the teacher model actually was?
They used this thing called teacher cross-entropy. It basically measures how well the teacher understands the training data. The lower that cross-entropy, the better the teacher, and the more effectively it can pass on its knowledge to the student.
So find yourself a top-notch teacher. That's the first step? Got it. What else did they discover?
Well, it turns out there's a sweet spot in terms of how much computing power you use for the different part of distillation. You can't just throw more resources at the prod and expect magic.
Oh, there's always a catch. Okay, I'm curious. Tell me about this sweet spot. What does that mean?
It's about balancing three things. First, you've got training the teacher model, then getting its predictions, and finally, using those predictions to train the student. Those predictions are called logits, by the way. It's kind of like the teacher isn't just giving the answers, they're showing their work.
So we need to find that optimal balance between training the teacher, getting its predictions, and then using that to train the student.
Exactly. And that's where the real efficiency gains come from.
But isn't there a case for just sticking with the traditional way of training? Just taking the smaller model and training it directly on the data? Sometimes that just makes more sense, right?
Absolutely. The research found that, yeah, sometimes supervised learning that traditional way is still the most efficient route, especially if your student model's already on the larger side or if you've got a relatively small data set to work with.
Uh-huh, so distillation isn't the magical answer to everything. Sometimes it wins, sometimes it doesn't. That's why we need to understand these trade-offs.
Right. And that's the beauty of having this scaling law. It's like a guide, a framework for making smarter decisions. You can look at what you've got, your model size, your data, your computational budget, and it'll help you decide whether distillation or traditional training is the best way to go.
I like that. It's like a cheat sheet for efficient AI. But it's not just about speed and saving money, right? This has implications for the environmental impact of AI too.
Absolutely. As we use these big language models more and more, we ought to think about the energy they consume. It's a serious concern.
No doubt, we can't ignore the carbon footprint of all this computing power.
And that's where this research is so valuable. If we can optimize distillation, remember that sweet spot, then we can develop really powerful models that are much more energy efficient.
So it's about pushing the boundaries of AI while also making it more sustainable.
Yeah, striking that balance. Now, full disclosure, this study, it was all about language modeling, specifically the English part of the C4 dataset.
Okay, so there are some limitations.
Right, like with those super large data sets, they had to repeat some data to get enough tokens. Now, with traditional training, we know this repeating doesn't really mess with the results. But with distillation, we can't be 100% sure yet.
Got it. So there's still more to explore, more nuances to figure out.
Definitely, but this research, it gives us a solid starting point. It's a good foundation for understanding how to make AI more efficient.
Absolutely. And I think what makes it even more exciting is that it's not just about language models, right? This concept of distillation, training a smaller model to mimic a bigger one, it feels like it could be applied to other areas of AI too.
Oh, totally. Researchers are already looking at how to use it with computer vision, robotics, you name it. It's like a whole new way of thinking about AI development.
That's incredible. Instead of just making things bigger and bigger, we're now figuring out how to make them smarter and smaller.
It's a real paradigm shift.
And the best part is that it could make AI more accessible to everyone. Researchers, developers, even hobbyists who don't have access to those huge computing clusters can now get in on the action.
Democratizing AI, I like that. And all of this, it ties back to making AI more sustainable too. It's not just about pushing the limits of what's possible, it's about doing it responsibly.
All right, before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I want to bring up something that's been on my mind. As AI gets more sophisticated, some people are worried that it'll, well, replace human intelligence altogether. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a valid concern. And it's a discussion that's been going on for a while now. AI has come a long way, that's for sure. But I still believe human intelligence has a unique value that can't be replicated.
Whew, that's good to hear. But how do we ensure that AI complements our intelligence instead of competing with it?
I think the key is to play to AI's strengths. Let it handle the things it's good at, processing massive amounts of data, finding those hidden patterns, automating those tedious tasks. That frees us humans up to focus on the things that make us unique, like creativity, critical thinking, empathy.
So it's not about humans versus machines. It's about finding ways to work together.
Exactly. I think that's where the true potential of AI lies. It's about augmenting our abilities, not replacing them.
Well said. This deep dive has really been eye-opening for me. We've learned so much about distillation, its potential to change the AI game, and all the amazing things it could enable.
It's been a fantastic conversation, and I hope our listeners are feeling just as inspired as we are.
Me too. But before we wrap up, is there one key takeaway that you'd want our listeners to remember from all of this? What really stands out to you?
I think it's this. We're at a turning point in AI. We're moving away from this idea that bigger is always better. This research on distillation shows that we can achieve incredible things with smaller, more efficient models. And that's a big deal, not just for the future of AI, but for its impact on the world around us.
I couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time to be following the world of AI. So where do we go from here? What are some of the unanswered questions, the next big challenges that you'd like to see tackled? What are you most curious about?
Let's see. One area that really fascinates me is how we can use these smaller, more efficient models to make breakthroughs in scientific research. Like, imagine if AI could help us analyze huge data sets in fields like genomics, climate science, astrophysics. It would be like giving scientists a superpower.
Oh, I love that idea. Scientists could uncover hidden patterns, insights that would have taken humans years, maybe decades to find. It could revolutionize the pace of discovery.
Exactly. Think about it. We could develop life-saving drugs faster, create more sustainable energy, heck, even understand the origins of the universe. Who knows what's possible?
Those are some seriously ambitious goals. This is way bigger than just making AI faster and cheaper. We're talking about changing the world.
I think so. And it's not limited to science either. What about art, music, literature? AI could help us create entirely new forms of expression. Imagine writers collaborating with AI to come up with completely new genres, or musicians composing symphonies that blend human and machine creativity.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. AI art installations, interactive novels that blur the lines between reality and imagination. It's like opening up a whole new dimension of creativity.
And don't forget about personalized learning. Imagine AI tailoring educational experiences to each individual's learning style, their pace, their interests. It would be like having a 24/7 personal tutor.
That's game-changing, especially for people who don't have access to traditional education.
Exactly. And with these smaller, more efficient models, it could be accessible to anyone with a smartphone or a computer anywhere in the world. We're talking about democratizing education on a global scale.
This is incredibly powerful stuff.
And it's just the tip of the iceberg. As we keep refining these models, the possibilities are endless.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've explored the science behind distillation, talked about how it could revolutionize AI, and imagined all sorts of incredible applications that it could unlock.
It's been a real pleasure. And I hope our listeners are as excited about the future of AI as we are.
I'm sure they are. We've covered so much ground today. But if you had to choose one key takeaway for our listeners, what would it be?
I'd say this: the world of AI is changing fast, and we're just starting to grasp its true potential. Stay curious, stay engaged, and embrace this incredible technology. It has the power to transform our world for the better.
That's a fantastic message to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into distillation and efficient AI. We can't wait to see what the future holds.
It really gets you thinking, doesn't it? Like, where could all this lead? What really gets me is how it could change the way we use these models.
Oh, you know I love talking applications. This is where it gets real for me. What gets you most excited?
Well, if we can make these powerful language models smaller, less resource intensive, it opens up a whole new world. Imagine everyone having their own personal AI assistant right on their devices.
That would be amazing. No more lag, no more needing a supercomputer to answer a simple question.
Exactly. And it's not just about speed, it's about privacy too. All your data stays on your device, nice and secure.
Okay, I'm sold. Sign me up. What else are you excited about?
I think about education a lot. Imagine AI tuners that adapt to each student, give them personalized feedback. That could revolutionize how we learn, make education truly accessible to everyone.
It's like having a world-class tutor right in your pocket, available anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, and that's just the start. Think about healthcare analyzing medical data, helping doctors diagnose things faster and more accurately. Or scientific research. We could use AI to make discoveries in genomics, climate science, so many fields.
It's like we're talking about AI being integrated into everything we do, helping us be more productive, healthier, maybe even smarter.
That's the goal. But we got to be realistic, right? Every powerful technology has its downsides. We have to make sure we're using AI responsibly.
Of course, we've seen how things can go wrong, so we have to learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges is making sure this technology benefits everyone, not just a select few. We've got to deal with bias in the data, make sure these AI systems are fair and equitable for everyone.
We don't want to just replicate existing inequalities. That's a really important point.
And then there's the whole question of how we design these systems, how we deploy them. They have to align with our values. We don't want any unintended consequences.
It's not just about the tech, it's about the ethics too. We need to be thinking about both.
Exactly. Finding that sweet spot between innovation and responsibility.
We've been talking about language models specifically. Do you think these findings, this idea of distillation, could apply to other types of AI too?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. Remember, distillation, it's all about training a smaller model to mimic a larger one. That concept, it's pretty versatile.
So we could apply it to computer vision, robotics, all sorts of things.
I think so. Researchers are already exploring those possibilities. It's like a whole new way of thinking about AI, a paradigm shift.
Instead of just making things bigger, we're making them smarter and smaller.
Yeah, and that could make AI more accessible to everyone, not just those with huge budgets and massive computing power.
Democratizing access to AI, that's powerful stuff.
It is, and it all circles back to making AI more sustainable, more responsible. It's not just about what's possible, it's about how we get there and who benefits.
Okay, but before we get too carried away with all the good stuff, I gotta ask, we're building these super sophisticated AI systems. Some people are worried that they might actually replace human intelligence. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a big question, and it's important to talk about it. I mean, AI has made some incredible progress. There's no denying that. But I truly believe that human intelligence, it still has something special, something irreplaceable.
Okay, good. But how do we make sure AI complements human intelligence? That it doesn't become a competitor?
I think it comes down to focusing on what AI does best. Let it handle the massive data crunching, the complex pattern recognition, the boring, repetitive tasks. That frees us humans up to focus on what makes us unique. Creativity, critical thinking, those things that require emotional intelligence.
It's about teamwork, humans and machines working together.
Precisely. And honestly, I think that's where the real magic happens. It's not about AI taking over. It's about AI empowering us to do even greater
This
things.
has been a really thought-provoking deep dive. We've learned a lot about distillation, its potential to revolutionize AI, and all the amazing things it could enable.
It's been my pleasure, and I really hope our listeners are as inspired as I am about the future of AI.
I'm sure they are. But before we wrap up, is there one key takeaway you'd want our listeners to walk away with? Something that really stands out to you?
I think it's this. We're moving away from this idea that bigger is always better in AI. This research on distillation proves that we can achieve incredible results with smaller, more efficient models. And that has enormous implications, not just for AI, but for the world.
I totally agree. It's an exciting time to be following the world of AI. So where do you think this research will lead us next? What are some of the unanswered questions that you're most curious about?
It really feels like we're on the verge of something big, doesn't it? This whole distillation thing. It's really got me thinking.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you there. This research has really sparked my imagination. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
It is, it is. And the thing is, this is just one piece of the puzzle, right? There's so much happening in AI right now, so many exciting developments. It's like every day there's something new.
It's true. It's hard to keep up sometimes, but that's what makes it so exciting. So looking ahead, what are some of the big questions, the challenges that you think this research could help us tackle? What are you most curious about?
Well, for me, one area that I'm really interested in is how we can use these smaller, more efficient models to push the boundaries of scientific discovery. Imagine, AI helping us analyze those massive data sets in fields like genomics or climate science.
Yeah, or even astrophysics. It's like giving scientists a superpower, helping them make sense of all that data.
Exactly. We could see breakthroughs in so many fields, developing new drugs, maybe even curing diseases, finding new sources of energy, sustainable energy, heck, even understanding the origins of the universe. It's mind-blowing.
Wow, those are some ambitious goals. It sounds like the potential impact of these smaller, more efficient models could be even bigger than we thought.
I think so. And it's not just science, right? We could see these models revolutionizing art, music, literature, writers working with AI to create whole new genres, musicians composing symphonies that blend human and machine creativity.
Oh, wow. I can already picture those AI-generated art installations, interactive novels that blur the lines between reality and fiction. The possibilities are endless.
They are. And let's not forget about personalized learning. AI could tailor education to each student's individual needs, their learning style, their pace. It's like having a personal tutor available 24/7.
That would be incredible, especially for people who don't have access to good schools or teachers.
Exactly. And because these models are smaller, more efficient, it could be accessible to anyone with a smartphone, a computer, anywhere in the world. It's about democratizing education on a global scale.
That's a powerful thought.
It really is, and I truly believe this is just the beginning. As we keep improving these models, who knows what we'll be able to achieve.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. We've explored the science, the potential, the implications. It's been amazing.
It has, and I hope our listeners are as excited as we are about what the future holds.
I think they are. We've covered so much ground today. But if you had to leave our listeners with one key takeaway, what would it be?
I'd say this. The world of AI is changing rapidly. We're just starting to understand its true power. Stay curious, stay engaged, and don't be afraid to embrace this incredible technology. It has the potential to make our world a better place.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive into the world of distillation and efficient AI.
It's been a pleasure.
To all our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. We can't wait to see what the future holds, and we'll be here to explore it with you every step of the way.